Okay, boys, with my beta key that I received from a popular streamer's stream.
How many ranks does Hemorrhage have in Classic WoW? The correct answer is 3. It has 3 ranks. The winner is that guy.
Say my name.
Renon TTV.
You're goddamn right.
Sometimes being a classic Andy is helpful. Okay, so going into the actual video, because RNGesus bestowed upon me all the rogue gear a man could want in terms of weapons, I thought I'd make a quick video for you guys testing the damage of each spec relative to each other. I'll be testing combat swords, combat daggers, and the Mutilate build for PvE, so you can see, at least with some of the best weapons in the game for Phase 1, how each build performs relative to each other. Quick disclaimer for this video, I use the Gnarly Guides DPS rotation and build to test this video. They go over enchants, gems, and the rotation you should use depending on which build you go, so if you want to see what I was doing, you can head on over there. Also, I couldn't use the boss dummy because other players' debuffs were constantly getting in the way, which would change my DPS from each session, so I was using a random dummy nearby. So while the DPS I'm doing may not be indicative of, say, the damage you do on a boss, it will show the specs damage relative to each other, which is going to be important for this video because we want to see what spec does the most damage of the 3 we have. Okay, let's go into combat swords. I'm using Blinkstrike, which depending on the proc rate, can be one of the best swords in the game for Phase 1. And that is what I'm going to be testing here for you guys right now. So what is the proc rate? Well, I recorded a 30-minute long segment of me just white hitting a mob with just a sword and no talents. I even took off the Mongoose enchant because that can script the data because it increases your attack speed if it ever activates. Additionally, I did this with no buffs just to make sure to keep the data as isolated as possible. I took off all my gear as well, so there is nothing but a naked man and his weapon. So get your juice boxes ready because we got some testing to do. So overall we had 80 procs over 2,104 total hits. If you take that 2,104 hits and subtract the procs that we had, because those weren't the melee hits that would proc the extra hit, that would equal 2,024 normal melee swings. And of that 2,024, we had 80 procs. So if you divide 80 by 2,024, you get roughly 3.95%. Meaning each one of those swings had about a 3.95% chance to proc an extra attack. At that proc rate, Blinkstrike at a speed of 2.6 would have a 60 divided by 2.6, which equals 23.08 attacks per minute. If each attack had a 3.95% chance to proc an extra swing, it would be roughly 0.91 procs per minute just based on white hits alone. Now, if you take into account Sinister Strike, Wind Fury, Sword Spec, and the ability for the buff to proc itself, then the value does go up quite nicely depending on your buffs you have. However, for this video, I'll be using no buffs and I'll just be going in with raw rogue damage. Okay, boys, that is going to be it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a better understanding of all the different DPS specs that rogues have. I think generally speaking, what we've heard already about rogue is going to be true. Obviously, combat swords is going to be number one. And combat daggers, especially early on, is actually not bad. If you can get that dagger from Karazhan, from the Prince guy, then your DPS is actually going to be quite formidable. I think the only downside of being a dagger rogue is that when you want to step into PvP, you won't be having, you know, Spite Blade, because, you know, they're going to give it to a warrior or another combat sword rogue, and meaning that you're going to kind of suffer in a PvP setting. So I think overall, if you're a rogue trying to PvP, definitely go for Spite Blade and be a combat sword rogue. That way you can compete for it. But if you're not, if you're just kind of probably dabbling in PvP, maybe you can just go blacksmithing, create that hammer, and then just go dagger rogue and get the best dagger. And then if you ever want to PvP here and there, you can just pull out your blacksmithing mace, and all of a sudden you're in a good spot. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and please stay tuned for more.